Okay, hello. My name is Devin Rapp, and I'm working on this project with Dr. Glen Kreiner, and we are both part of the David Eccles School of Business at the University of Utah. And our project is called If I'm a Hero, Then Why Are You Avoiding Me? Ambivalence as a Side Effect of Increased Esteem and Stigma Among Healthcare Workers During the COVID-19 Pandemic. So thanks so much for checking out our project and looking at our summary paper. So in the past, we've seen as researchers and society instances where professional esteem or stigmatization can increase or decrease because there's some shock to the status quo. So you think of firefighters after 9/11, or investment bankers after the subprime mortgage crisis, or police officers, what's going on right now, in different directions. And so what our project looks at is an instance where both esteem and stigma are rising for the same profession. And then in that case, it's healthcare workers. So right now we're seeing additional steam from the pandemic for teachers, truck drivers, grocery store workers, and healthcare workers. And we also see additional stigma for people who've contracted COVID-19, those who've recovered recently, and unfortunately, even people perceived to be of Asian descent have experienced stigmatization, and also healthcare workers. So you see them in both groups, and this is unique. And so using a grounded theory approach, we've seen this phenomenon where they're dealing with both things, and we want to explore how they react to that kind of duality of treatment and the ambivalence that comes from that. And so we're also interested in seeing what the consequences are for worker burnout, stigma, motivation, and the work-family interface. And we'll touch on a few of those in this very short presentation. So I'm sure most of you have seen healthcare hero signs, heroes work here. This has been really common throughout the whole world. In England, the Premier League has put "Thank you NHS" for the healthcare workers on all jerseys and throughout the stadium. So it's really been ubiquitous in Italy, Spain, and Argentina, and lots of other countries. We've seen quarantined people go out to their balconies and applaud at 9 o'clock or some prescribed time. And it's been really, really great for healthcare workers in a lot of ways. And we found this too. We found several healthcare workers who feel like this has really shown them how important their jobs are. And they've been really excited seeing how other people for the first time are really taking notice of their job and thinking they're important. So, however, we have seen kind of a dark side to this of the hero treatment in the perception of the healthcare workers. Here's a particularly powerful quote that I'll read. And this was when we asked about being called heroes. "I want to rip them all down. It really pisses me off. I hate it. The reason they're doing it is because they're trying to bolster people's self-esteem and be like, yeah, we know what we're making you do, a lot of crappy stuff like wear a mask every day and wear goggles and stuff, which is so ridiculous. Anyway, so we're going to say all these nice things to you so that you'll feel a little better about yourself. But it's all a means to an end. If they really thought we were heroes, those signs would have been there a year ago, not just in the last few months." And we've seen a lot of answers like that, where they feel like it's disingenuous the way that hospitals, the media, and the public in general have responded. And they've also felt like it ends really quickly. I won't read this whole quote, but at the end it says, "As soon as other things started to break out in the news, that died down immediately. It just stopped abruptly." So there's some ambivalence that comes from that duality. And so the other side, the stigma, has also been real. And we're drawing on a lot of research that's already been done on dirty work and stigma to look at that side as well. We've noticed that normally there are three different kinds of stigma, and you have the moral stigma, the physical stigma, and social stigma, at least those three. And in this case, we see this interesting combination of moral stigma actually going down or esteem going up for the moral duty that healthcare workers are doing, but people are still afraid to be exposed to the virus and to sick people. And so we see elements of physical and social stigma going in the opposite direction. So it's a really interesting contradiction. And I'll skip this part about stigma from the World Health Organization, but it's a very real thing right now with COVID-19. So here's another quote that I want to read just real fast that touches on both the hero and the stigma part. This was an emergency room supervisor said, "I think it's really unfortunate because after there was this healthcare heroes thing and those people supported that, and it's sad to see it in action when you see people giving dirty looks to people in scrubs. It's like that's the same person that's probably going to work to save your life if you ever come to the emergency room." So we've seen instances where there's been violence, and a lot of this has been reported in the news where in Argentina, there was an anonymous letter that said, "You're going to infect us all, go away," to hospital workers and doctors. And it was this really, really tough, stressful situation for a group, healthcare workers that are already dealing with very difficult and stressful circumstances. So here's some quotes about the ambivalence that some of our healthcare workers have felt. "But going out in public with your badge on and your scrubs on and stuff, people look at you differently and they say thank you or congratulate you or whatever. There's also the opposite side of that where people are like, look at you like you're infected or something." A healthcare worker in Argentina said they leave the house and go out at 9 p.m. every night and go out and applaud. Then they're sending letters saying they wish they'd go away so they don't get infected. It's not black and white, it's gray. So we're seeing this really affect the home too, and we're going to dive deeper into that as we keep interviewing more healthcare workers. But we see this really interesting situation where a lot of healthcare workers rely on their community, their neighbors, their family members for babysitting and for taking care of them, and just social and relationships. And this COVID unit nurse told us this: "We have neighbors who my kids play with who, when all of this happened, they were very like, 'Don't come near us. Your mom works in a hospital. You could get us sick.' And it was very emotionally hard on my children, which was very frustrating to me. I feel like I do work in a hospital and I do work in the COVID unit, in the ER and in the ICU, but I use all of the proper protection. And so I don't feel like I'm at a higher risk than they are by going to the grocery store." So we see this where a lot of healthcare workers really feel misunderstood and ambivalent and wronged by a public and their personal relationships giving them mixed messages. And one really interesting angle is how when a lot of healthcare workers get home, they really have to kind of de-cleanse from the day. This assistant director of nursing of a nursing home said, "After I go home, I make sure I take a shower before I even touch my daughter or my family and everything." And we talked to a director of nurse who said that she has talked to several family members of her worker at her nursing home who wanted to ask her, the director of nursing, to please put their family member on a shift that's not in the COVID unit. So we're seeing a home to work and a work to home interface that's really getting blurred, and it's interesting. So going forward, what we're going to look at for contributions and next steps is tying societal ambivalence to workers' ambivalence, tying stigma to work-family dynamics, understanding how workers cope with sudden occupational image shifts, tying stigma and ambivalence to burnout, and we're going to keep doing more interviews. So thank you so much for checking out our project, and if you'd like to discuss it in any way, we're really interested. So please send us an email or reach out. Thank you.